Studios. I'm your so-called host right here, Glenn Curry, along with our first time ever, our call-in guest, who I literally just called or texted moments ago to see if he would like to be on the show. And with us this afternoon on a Thursday. What's today's date, Steve? It's Steve. Check that. It's the Duff, otherwise known as someone else. But Duff, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing?
Good, good. I'm going to pot you down a bit because it looks like you're a little too loud, but that's how we do things around
Oh,
here.
there we go.
Yeah, much better. All right. So, listen, yesterday was a very sad day, and it was amazing when Rush Limbaugh, when it was announced, and I believe you announced it on the Hotline show yesterday at noon. Did you not? I think you did, or
I might have, yeah.
because he died. I think it was announced like an hour before the noon. I didn't know about it, but I heard you talk about it. That's how I learned about Rush's passing. I was here and I just wasn't paying attention to stuff. But it was, we knew he was ill. We knew he wasn't. Unfortunately, he was going to succumb to lung cancer, which happened yesterday. His last show was the 23rd of December. Very poignant way of signing off. From that point going forward, Mark Stein or old shows were put on in his place. But Duff, man, I knew there was going to be a lot of people, including the Yentas on The View, that were going to tear him apart. But it's just the stuff I've been hearing less than 24 or a day later was horrible. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just reading the comments on the Fox blog and stuff where they announced it.
Right.
Terrible what people were saying. And it just goes to prove everything that's been coming out in the last 10 years, let's say, about the left and how cruel they were, how the media's on their corner and all that kind of stuff. Everything that's ever been said about the left has now come to light where people finally realize it. And it's just shameful. I mean, there's people on the left that I'm not too keen on. Well, listen, if they died or something like that, I wouldn't get on there and bash them.
Well, I have my own theory about this. First of all, I think anything goes. And secondly, they'll say, and they being the left, they'll say that Donald Trump started this 6 years ago when he came down that escalator. And he says, when he started bad-mouthing, Mexicans and this and that, and, discourse was changed. Therefore, the rules had been changed. And I think forever, Duff, man, I think they're gonna hinge on that and get away with it. Remember, when in sports, because you're a sports fan, when you have home field advantage, you have a tendency to win all the time. I mean, winning teams, or rather home teams, usually win. It's just the way it is. So when you have academia on your side, when you have the media on your side, and now when you have big tech on your side, that says a lot, and it also means that they have liberties. They can get away with saying lousy things about a dead man and all the things that he accomplished. They kept on bringing up some things that he actually apologized for when he said he didn't say very good comments about Michael J. Fox. He was basically assessing that he was faking it at one point in his Parkinson's. But again, over the course of 30 plus years, you're going to say things that are going to upset people. But the left doesn't want to give up on that, Duff, man. And like I said, they have a lot of things on their side that can keep them as strong as they are. Do you agree with that?
Oh, they got the whole bureaucracy of government on their side. I mean, look at when they read the rules of radicals years ago, they followed that book right to the T, and now it's bearing fruit because, like you say, they took over academia. They took over. My God, even in elementary school, they're programming these kids, to come up as lefties. High school, the whole college, college is basically gone now.
Right.
So everything, the media is all controlled, and it's controlled by a lot of different factions of the left.
So you're right, but what would be the reasoning behind it? I mean, I'll give you my theory, but why are they doing this? Is obviously it's for power, but why do they insist on reminding America, particularly younger Americans, what America was instead of what it became? So why do they hinge on colonialism and slavery and Jim Crow laws, which were which had a strong hold on the South right up until the '60s, run by Democratic states? But they don't want to hear that argument.
Right.
So what is it that they want out of revealing all this stuff about the way the white man or Caucasian man was to the United States and its people over the last 200 plus years? Why are they doing this now?
Because they don't want this as a country. They're globalists, and they want the whole world That's the people that are preaching this are the people that are getting rich off of China and getting rich. These are your billionaires, Amazon and all these people. They're globalists and they want the whole world as one, and they don't want borders between each other and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
And
yeah.
a lot of it smokes. Basically what it is they're lining their pockets. They can't do it the old-fashioned way like Rush Limbaugh did or anybody else has done, like Ford and all these other industrialists that actually made their money the old-fashioned way. These people are preying on other people, and they want to prey on the whole world now.
And they're doing a very good job of it. But again,
Yeah.
I'm going to stick to my guns in that it's a convenient way to remind people that, hey, I know something about you. I mean, if I knew something about Duffman, which, by the way, for the record, I don't, and hopefully you don't know anything about me. But if you did have any type of weaponry or something in your back pocket that you can use, and I think that's what the left is all about right now. It says, I know what you did last summer. I know what you did 200 plus years ago, and it wasn't very nice, and you have to pay the price for that. There was a professor from St. Lawrence University, or one of these universities, that were on Channel 7 recently, and she was reflecting, obviously talking about Martin Luther King Day and its significance, as you and I know, a very significant man, one of the greatest Americans who ever lived. But within the context of her conversation with the reporter there at Channel 7, she wasn't talking about inequalities today. It was a reckoning of inequalities from yesteryear. And I thought that revealed everything right then and there. Because if you, listen, I'm not a black man, neither are you, and we can't speak without walking in the shoes of someone that might have been oppressed. There's no question. I know that exists today. But I can also tell you that people my age and older who are African Americans or people of color, they definitely were subjected to oppression and horrible things back in the 60s and 70s when we were growing up. That has since changed, and yet the left will look at it like if there's a George Floyd incident, which was very unfortunate, but we found out later that George Floyd was high on all types of opioids that day. That didn't excuse the police officer for doing what he did. But an incident like that says, aha, you see, systemic racism still exists, and it's in the form of all cops are bad, and most cops are part of authority. Therefore, that's part of the white establishment. Therefore, you're all bad. And we saw that again today. A day after Rush Limbaugh dies, Joy Reid from MSNBC says not only was Rush Limbaugh a racist, but anyone who follows him is a racist. So that broad stroke approach is just identifies everything about systemic racism as opposed to what racism really was not that long ago. And they're hinging on that today. So I think they're making up for lost time, Duffman.
Yeah, but that calling everybody a racist doesn't work like it used to. Not like it did 4 years ago. Joy Reid has no clue. It's like Bull Sturdley. Nobody knew he was black.
Right.
Rush Limbaugh is the farthest thing from a racist that there ever was. And the same as Donald Trump. We all know the real Donald Trump. He's probably one of the most giving men, So was Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
Did a lot of stuff.
Right.
And I see that picture of you. I didn't realize you had met him.
Yeah.
Back in his when he looked like House Cartwright.
Yeah, he did. He did look like Cartwright. Yeah, Haas. Yeah, he did. You know what? It's funny you should say that. Haas from Bonanza. He did look like him.
I told him that on the show when I called in. I was on the show twice, and I
really.
Yeah, because I got in the first time I got in. We talked about Mario Cuomo and getting rid of him. We did the next year,
right?
And then I got in there. I said, "Geez, I watched it because I'd watch his TV show, which a lot of people don't know. Roger Ailes was the producer,
right?"
And I'd watch a show, and so I called and I said, "Geez, I watch your show. You look great. You look just like Hoss Cartwright." He goes, "A lot of people say that." We had a nice discussion. This is back when I had the restaurant.
Right.
Used to be able to call up, between.
Right. And
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty neat. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny because Rush, he had some issues physically. He had the hearing issue. He also had back problems and his dependency on painkillers, and that was a big story. But you know what? He was one of those guys that actually got better looking with age. He lost weight, and he was a big George Brett fan. And ironically, to some degree, and you're related to the Brett family, but it's funny because he kind of started to look like he was related to George Brett. But he just had that very charismatic look. He lost weight, and he married young, at least twice during the time we've all known him. So God bless him for that. But unfortunately, listen, if Rush Limbaugh, and I'm serious about this, if he died, let's say, if he died a year ago yesterday, he certainly would have seen the same scrutiny that we heard today and last night. But I don't think it would have been as thick, if you will, without what we've just went through in the last 12 months, where the hatred has gone to a higher level as a result of COVID-19. So a year ago, yes, there's no question about it. Joy Reid, she didn't have a show at the time, but she still had a mouth. She would have said something negative. Joy Behar, same thing. Whoopi Goldberg, who was just, I don't know what to say about Whoopi anymore.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that year made a huge, huge difference. But you know what, Duff Man? You and we got crosshairs on us right now. We're bad people, according to the left. I think we need to be reprogrammed, according to Katie Couric. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess. I don't think it's going to happen. But the funny thing is, Glenn, I travel a lot, and I was just in Florida not too long ago.
Right.
I've got to tell you, my wife and I, you know me, I'm very sociable, and I go up when we talk, and we made a lot of friends down there when we were just down there.
Right.
And listen, I met people from Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, all over.
Right.
Not one person did we meet vote for Biden. Not one.
Mm-hmm.
They can't believe it either. They don't have any friends that voted for Biden.
Right.
Nobody can understand it. But what we all can understand is this, that there were a lot of people out there that just hate us for what we are.
Right.
Because we voted for Trump, because we believe in America, because we like the flag, we like the Pledge of Allegiance. We believe in the
Constitution.
All of it, and standing up before a game, and listening to the Star Spangled Banner, that kind of stuff. They just hate that.
They really do. And
for some reason, and I don't know why they hate this country that's been so good to them.
It's interesting you should say that, because a friend of mine, and you know him too, he was talking to a friend of his from college. And the conversation came up and says, hey, you should come down here to Florida. And the guy says, there's no way I'm going to Florida. He goes, what are you talking about? They voted Trump in. There's no way I'm going to Florida. Can you believe that? That's the way. This is an educated person who said this, which I question a lot of people who went through any educational system, particularly in upper, if they got anything beyond an undergraduate. To me, that doesn't mean anything anymore, because your true intelligence comes out with statements like that. So he'll ridicule, he'll eradicate, he'll get rid of the idea of moving to the state of Florida because Florida voted for Donald Trump in 2020. That's the type of thing. But again, and I'm sure you would agree with this, that's all part of mob mentality. If they don't say that, all of a sudden they could be misconstrued as you and I, Duff Man. They don't want that.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have to stick to the narrative.
They might lose their government job, or they might, let's face it, the education system, is controlled completely by the left. Most of the teachers that we know are Democrats.
Right.
So if you went into the school district, even the Watertown school district, and you were, saying I'm a Trump supporter and blah, 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 you probably ate the lunch table by yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. You'd be ostracized.
They would shun you. And we've seen a former person that worked at the TV station who was always a Republican, all of a sudden turned the other way and became a Biden supporter, because she was probably pressured by her friends who were in the education business.
Interesting. I don't know who that person is. It's none of my business. It really doesn't matter. But you and I know people, and I'll go out on a limb and say, what happened to Dave Mance?
Yeah.
I'll give you, and again, I'm not here to pick on Dave. Dave's a great guy, great broadcaster. He gave me my first start. But I have a theory. And my theory is this: it's just like the old adage, I don't know if it's an adage, but when someone is a strict father or mother through our generation, and their children have children, all of a sudden you become a grandparent, and all of a sudden you become docile. You're not as mean. You love seeing the grandchildren, which is great, and you should love seeing your grandchildren. But where was that love and affection when you had children back in the 60s and 70s? Not that they were abusive, but it was a different story. And I think the same applies. Someone like Dave, or someone who likes Mitt Romney, and other so-called Republicans just want the status quo. They don't want Donald Trump to impede on them, and they want everybody to get along. So those are the same people that are registered Republicans who vote for Joe Biden because they're embarrassed by Donald Trump. And I think, again, if there's anything that is clear with the most recent election, is that there's a lot of people that voted for Trump in 2016 because they didn't like Hillary, but wanted all that stuff to go away that Trump had nothing to do with, including COVID, because they felt like he was America's biggest problem. And it shows, Duff Man, because now people are shaking their head thinking, how in the world is Joe Biden our president of the United States right now?
Right. No, I know. But you got to remember, Mance was always a moderate. He was always you know, he was always, in the middle, let's say.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know.
And well, he was, and his wife was a school teacher.
Yeah,
Let's come
but
on. I
she
mean,
wasn't political at all. Nancy was. No, she
well,
could care
yeah,
less.
but they became political. The union forced them into being political.
Right.
Just like now, it's a political thing. This whole COVID thing and not going back to school.
Right.
I mean, you go down to Florida, schools in session. They're going 5 days a week. They're not having the problems. The buses are out. People are living. They're working. Glenn, you go down there. It's like being in America.
It's like going back to 2019, right?
It's like going back to 2017.
Right, right.
Things are normal down there, but people are careful. They're wearing masks.
Mhm.
But the wife and I had an incident. We were out in the middle of nowhere on one of these trails where you go and it's a park where you go and you look at the flowers and all that kind of stuff. And you're out by yourself.
Right.
And we're walking. This woman walks by with a mask on, and we don't have masks on.
Uh-oh.
But we're outside and we're normal and we're halfway intelligent.
Right.
And know that you don't need a mask if you're 6 foot apart or away from people and you're outdoors.
Right.
So she starts coughing.
On purpose?
Yeah. And that wasn't the first time. And then we walk down, and all of a sudden she gets up and does it again.
Yeah.
And my wife just gave her a look. But
Right.
This isn't the first time that it happened to them. They were in Massachusetts. They're walking down the street, her and her sisters. They didn't have masks on. They're outside. They're out for a walk.
Right.
These people were on the other side of the street with masks on. They actually walked over and screamed at them for not wearing a mask.
And massive. What? But
Seriously.
yeah. No, I
It's
believe
a
it.
control thing for these people.
Right. Right.
You're a bad person. You don't have a mask on,
Right. Right.
even though you're outdoors.
And by the way, speaking of crazy people, what about Amy Cooper? She was the Central Park Karen from 2 summers ago.
Oh, yeah.
She has taken courses. All charges were dropped. She almost incited a riot. She could have had people killed, including police officers, during that whole tirade. A well-known, I shouldn't say well-known, but she certainly wasn't a Trump supporter. She was a Hillary Clinton supporter. But she came across, all crazy Karens they're always characterized, Duff Man, as Trumpers, essentially just crazy white people.
Yeah.
And as we find out, that was completely she was a crazy white person, that's for sure. And I'm not saying that the Karens out there are one or the other. I think we learned a lot about middle-aged women in the last 12 months. I don't know what it is, including the woman that you guys ran into down there in Florida, for that matter, in Massachusetts. But does it remind you of history? I mean, there's such a part of a dark part of history in the 1940s where occupied France, all of a sudden they became willing executioners in an occupied country. Do you have that same sense that the teachers union, for instance, in Chicago and San Francisco, they just won't give in. I was just listening to Ben Shapiro. There's not one confirmed case of a school teacher dying from COVID as a result of being near children. Not one. And even if there was, I mean, let's face it, out of 330 plus million people, and who knows how many other illegals we have that that are in this country, and that's fine. But that's a lot of people. So if you had a statistic that said, hey, a teacher dies every week in 6 school districts out of every state because of COVID, you go like, shut it down. There's no question. But that data is not there. And why not? Why isn't it there? Because this teachers union are like what the Teamsters were in the 40s and 50s. They're the most powerful union there is out there, and that is disgusting what's going on right now.
Yeah, that all stems from back in when Obama was elected in 2000.
Well, even before, yes, I agree. Yeah, but way before that.
No, but he really rewarded them, and then he rewarded them. When the market crashed and everything, and we went into that recession when everything kind of went crazy there in 2008. They were the only ones that got raises, if you remember.
Interesting. I didn't know that. No. It doesn't surprise me. Well, I mean, and obviously now Biden and that crazy woman, that the press secretary with the red hair, pretty woman.
Oh, geez.
But boy, she's got. She's.
Wait a minute.
Well, no, she's not ugly by any means. But you.
Yeah, I mean, come on now.
No, she's
go
got.
From Kayleigh McEnany.
Well.
To her, I mean, Glenn.
Yeah.
The camera people are being very generous there. They're filming one side, but when they take the other side.
I know. First of all, I don't care what they look like. It's that smug look on her face where she's like, nope, we're in charge now. And she doesn't answer any questions. And everyone's fine with that. And Biden's out there with his dog frolicking in the back. Everyone loves the dog. And again, I don't like getting into the double standard. And the double standard is part of the rhetoric these days. But it's just so painfully obvious. They're in a love affair with Joe Biden, who just admitted the other day he was never on the second floor of the White House up until the other day. I mean, what?
Well, they didn't want him up there wandering around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. No, because the way he showed up around whatever. I got to look out because we're on Facebook. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I know.
With again, and that's the Gestapo type of environment we're living in right now. We got to watch each and everything we say in a nation that's supposed to be free, but then they'll say, "Oh no, it's private sector." It's like saying private property. You can't come here, even though it's a free land. It's private property. It's a private company. Go ahead.
Did you see him when he was wandering around there with his wife
Yeah.
and the two dogs? And somebody said, one of the reporters kidding around like people do.
Yeah.
Hey, where's our coffee?
Right.
And he goes, oh, next time I'll bring donuts. Then he walks over to the reporter.
Yeah.
And he hands the coffee to her. And she says, oh, take it.
Right.
And the reporter's like, oh, no, I was just kidding,
Right.
No, he goes, I didn't even drink out of take it.
Right.
And then she's feeling like, you could see it in her eyes and her face. Like,
Oh, they're just so
oh,
enamored.
man,
So
if I
so.
take it, do I got to take a sip out of it?
Right.
And, he drank out of it, drooled in it and everything else.
Right.
But that, talk about putting somebody in an uncomfortable situation, which Joe Biden has always been famous for.
Right.
Is making people feel uncomfortable.
Right, right, and there's pictures, there's stills of him, just with children, whatever. I mean, again, I maybe he was just being a nice old man, but certainly in the age of the Me Too generation, images like that certainly don't help people. But obviously, it didn't hurt him from being president of the United States. And you and I can talk a lot about whether or not there was fraud on election night. But I'm going to say this stuff, man. First of all, the first victim, I said this: once the left gets power, and they did that when they won the January 7th. Race, the two races down there after the so-called insurrection, then it was official that they would take over both sides of the house, of both the Senate and the House, and of course the executive, power too. So I said once they get there, which they're at, they're going to start attacking each other. Who's the first victim? Andrew Cuomo.
Yep.
No surprise. You have identity politics is alive and well. You have the African-American woman, the DA from Manhattan, forgetting her name right at the moment. She was the first one to throw a punch at Andrew Cuomo, and now he's yelling at the assemblyman in Queens and so forth. His true colors come out. But the big reason behind this stuff, man, is because identity politics doesn't protect guys like Andrew Cuomo. And it doesn't protect someone like Kristen Gillibrand. So before long, New York is going to be represented in all of the cases of both governor, the Senate. Schumer has to stay there because he's the head of the House, head of the Senate. So you watch, and then De Blasio will just basically, have his protege replace him. He's already on the far left of things. So the progressives are just getting started here in New York State. So be careful of who replaces Andrew Cuomo, because as bad as Andrew Cuomo is, and we know that, the next one, it's not going to be Molinaro. It's not going to be the parliament with the crazy guy from Buffalo. And it's not going to be Cynthia Nixon, thank God. But it's definitely going to be a progressive left-wing lunatic that will take over the governor's race. And at that point, it travels even north of Yonkers, even Albany, because they could care less about the people in north of Yonkers. And that's you and I, Duff, So we got to be careful of that. At the end of the day, the best worst case scenario, no matter which way you look at it, is Governor Andrew Cuomo. You agree?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's getting what he deserves, but that's my.
I just got a text from someone, and let me just see this. If I read it right.
Are they saying everybody doesn't like me?
No, yeah, I don't get that. First of all, we're missing the Live at 5 show. I'm sorry, but what Duff is talking about, and Mayor Graham does this all the time, because he's getting a lot of flack for his blog. He's getting a lot of flack from the so-called, I guess, institutions up in St. Lawrence County. He refers to them that way. Those crazies up there at the colleges. And so, when people condemn him, which is part of the game, once you get your name out there and you start talking anything, especially on the right-wing politics, people are going to attack you. You know that. So, but at the same time, he loves dragging people down with him like you. And then he wonders why Steve Jennings doesn't call anymore. Not everyone likes Steve Jennings. So what? You don't say that. You never say that. That's someone that's looking to, that's someone who's on his way down. Someone pushed him, but he's going to grab Duff's arm and take you down too. That's one thing that drives me nuts about Jeff, and I really would. And another, I got to admit, this is hysterical. When Lefty calls in, Lefty.
Yeah.
You know it's going to be a lesson. And he used to do the same thing with me, and it used to drive me crazy. It's so entertaining to hear Lefty call the Hotline show or whatever show and say, hey, you know what you do so much? You know what you do all the time? And Jeff is like, what? What do I do? You say, I love you like a brother. You don't love people like a brother. You can't love people like a brother. You got to stop saying that. And Duffy's right. And the other thing, Lefty didn't bring this up, but someone out of the blue, like 2 months ago, said, why is it SG calls with 2.5 minutes left in the show? And why is that, Duff? Why does he call so late in the show?
I don't know. He giggles after every sentence.
And again, SG, good guy. Cliff only, good guy. But in the last year, they went from this left, I'm pointing in the left, to way left, to the point where, my goodness gracious. Cliff Only's posts about Jeff Smith are just, they're slanderous. It's not the spoken word, but they're libel. And it's just awful, the stuff that he's doing. And, of course, Jeff's not going to do anything about it. He's a big man. But I think social media and COVID-19 has created a mob mentality that is going to be really tough to defeat, Duff, man. I don't know where the country's going to go in the upcoming years. And it just got started. Who knows? Listen, there's a wall around the Capitol right now for a reason. They're going to say it was because of the so-called insurrection. But they're going to keep that wall up like a Jason Robards, miniseries on ABC back in the 80s, Washington Behind Closed Doors, to protect, them from the crazies, which, by the way, who went into the Capitol that day on January 6th, and not one statue or bust was toppled. No one says that. Now, what they did was wrong. There's no question. And people did get hurt. 5 people died of other crazy things, including one protester who got shot in the neck, and there's no investigation for that. But they left after being there for a couple of hours, and that wall still remains around the Capitol building. Thousands of reservists are still living down there, living on cold floors in garages and so forth, which is disgusting. But you watch, they're going to keep that up there because the changes that are be coming out of Washington, D.C. are going to make today's policies look like a walk in the park. They're going to get rid of gun control, or rather they're going to have their say as far as changing the gun rules and many other things. So they're keeping those walls up to blame the insurrectionists, so-called, and the Republicans. But in reality, they're protecting themselves from the new mandates they're going to be setting forth real soon.
Yeah, I know my son-in-law's down there. He can't believe he's down there and doesn't know why he's down there. But, there's a lot of myths there. And I kind of fell for that, too. There was only one death that was actually caused by that. That was the woman that got shot.
Right.
And there's never been an investigation.
Nothing.
On that.
And it's on video, by the way.
It's funny because somebody from MSNBC sold the video, or some people there sold the video to these TV stations and stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then the other people died of physical, like heart attacks or something like that.
Yeah, the police officer died of a stroke 2 days later.
They said that one guy got assaulted with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
Never happened. Yeah. He had no injuries. The autopsy just came out, and the New York Times had to reprint an apology saying it wasn't true and that the guy didn't die from injuries. There were no injuries shown at all in his autopsy.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
By the way,
they were saying that he was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher.
Right, and
completely,
and an autopsy obviously would have proven that there was blunt force trauma, but that wasn't the case. But again, you read the book. We all had. It was required reading. Orwell's 1984. It just got here 30 plus years later. It's here, and it's very much here. And and before I go, because I know I even want to listen to the Live at 5 show, because this is that time of day. But I wanted to test out my new system here with the Duff Man here at our studios, high above Public Square, and say that, look, I'm going to go out on a limb. This is my theory. And we all know about LeBron James getting all upset with the former general manager of the Houston Rockets for retweeting that tweet about the Hong Kong protesters back in October of 2019. I'm going to tell you, Duff Man, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. When do you remember what I'm talking about with the former?
Oh, yeah.
When he retweeted support It wasn't even his tweet. He just retweeted support for the Hong Kong protesters. And we know what's going on since 1999, since China took over Hong Kong and so forth. The British rule, it's their Wall Street, it's everything. It's everything to them. So they want to transform that, obviously. And I'm surprised they haven't done it yet. But that particular tweet changed the world. And I'll tell you why. One, President Trump was pissing off the nationalists in China with all the trade deals and the reorganization because they had insiders in the swamp for many years saying, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. All of a sudden, Trump comes down the escalator, and the rest, of course, is history. He looks at all these bad deals that we've been doing under other administrations. He changes all that. Not to mention he gets money from NATO countries that we weren't getting to begin with. That's another story altogether. So China's all upset. But next thing you know, this guy retweets this thing as I said, no mas, no more. I think, honestly, Duffman, I'm thinking that at that point, that's when they knew they could set off the entire world with a virus and set it off from Wuhan from that point. And I really think that was the tweet that really did it. Therefore, that would be the tweet that changed the world. It's a crazy theory. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I don't like going down these flat earth type theories and so forth. I get that, and we know who I'm referring to right now. But it's their right to do it, and that's fine. I'm not going to condemn them for doing that, although Democrats would. But I really think that set off the course because a month or so later, we started hearing about this virus. It was in Wuhan. We started seeing people being locked in their buildings and then praised for the Chinese for handling it. And their economy was up and running in July of 2020. And look where we are right now. We can't even get teachers to go back to school.
Right.
So that's my theory. I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to conclude this presentation, the first ever of politics or political talk here in the H2O Studios show, or the H2O show from H2O Studios, with the Duff Man himself. And Duff Man, thank you very much for being with me today. We'll do this again in the future.
Glenn.
And I'll probably hear you on the Live at 5 show or whatever. But I'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy.
Great. Thank you very much.
Right.
So that was the Duff. And again, I've spoken to the Duff on many occasions on Live at 5 show over the years. He's a regular caller with Jeff's show at the noon hour and the 5 o'clock hour. Very outspoken, exercises his American right to do so, which is awesome, whether you believe him or not, or agree with him, whichever. But I will never, repeat, ever put anyone or tear anyone down simply because someone doesn't like me. So, well, you don't like me, that means you don't like Duff, because I hate that. It's disassociation, and it's not very proper. So without further delay, I'm going to finish off by having everyone look at what's going on outside. Today wasn't that bad. We didn't get much snow, although this has been a snowy month for sure, and it's been cold, but it could be worse. We could be in Texas. So anyway, I'm signing off right now, and we'll see you soon here from the H2O Studios. I'm Glenn Curry, and have a good night.